2023 김대중평화
Distinguished guests, welcome back to the afternoon session of the Kim-dae-jung Peace Forum 2023. Once again, I would like to welcome you all back to the afternoon session. Session 6 will be about the new Cold War and food and energy security. And the moderator of the session 6 is Mr. Chun-taek, the professor of the Gwangju Institute of Science and Technology. And there are two presenters. First, we have Mr. Doo-bong, the president of the Korea Rural Economic Institute, and also Mr. Jang, the professor of the Korea Institute of Energy Technology. Please welcome all of them with a big round of applause. Thank you.
Moderator Chun-taek. There are many Koreans, so I will introduce this session in Korean. 저는 광주 과학기술원
Good afternoon. I am Chun-taek, the professor of Gwangju Institute of Science and Technology. As you know, the title of session 6 is the new Cold War and food and energy security. And I would like to briefly introduce to you about today's session. So climate crisis, as we have all heard yesterday and today, is overwhelming the world. It is one of the most important issues these days. For instance, mitigating greenhouse gas emission and adaptation to climate change are the necessary actions that we need to take, and we also need to take urgent actions. And though the agenda of carbon neutrality by 2050 drew great attentions at the COP26 in Glasgow in 2021, there were 132 countries that took part in that resolution, and so the leaders of the world gathered and reached consensus. It was the first time to do so actually in 2021. This shows that climate crisis is one of the most imperative issue that we need to address, and energy transition is one of the most important agenda. And to achieve that agenda, there is a long and tough way to go. And fortunately, global energy transition from fossil fuels to renewable energies is quite successful. So the renewable power generation share now became as large as 30% and is also expected to be 91% in 2050. This energy transition became possible due to the lowest prices and widespread available natural energy resource. The price difference is only 3 times, for instance, between the wind power, solar power, and other natural energy resources. And also in terms of new car sales, the sales of electric vehicles was more than 10 million last year, and next year it is expected to grow by 30%. And this is thanks to the technology development of semiconductor and battery technologies, and the market changed. And along with carbon neutrality, also energy security, which is the title of today's session, has become the most important issue in the world since last year. It is because the oil and gas prices hit the peak last year, and that is why energy security became a critical issue for energy importing countries, including EU and Asian countries like us. So, diversifying energy resources and improving energy efficiency, electrification, and fuel change are the key strategies for ensuring energy security. And also in terms of energy security, this would be an important strategy. Especially distributed renewable energy is an economic and democratic solution, because the best places for solar and wind power are at most 3 times better than the worst places. And another theme of this session is food. And food, along with natural energy resources. It is another form of natural energy, that is bioenergy transformed from solar energy by plants and animals. The amount of food production and efficiency have drastically increased due to large-scale agriculture and advanced bioengineering. However, mainly because of the war in Ukraine and because of climate change, we are also experiencing food supply crisis. And not only that, because of this new Cold War, the global food supply chains are being threatened by political barriers and economic big hands. So food security is therefore more important these days than ever. So food security is essential for all individuals in terms of availability, accessibility, utilization, and stability of a sufficient and nutritious food supply. It's not only about the country's security, but it's also about the personal security as well. That is why ensuring food security is vital for economic and social stabilities, public health, human well-being, environmental sustainability, rural livelihoods, innovation, and technologies. That is why policy and governance for food security should focus on equitable distribution, promoting sustainable practices, and creating safety nets for vulnerable populations. Global and nationwide food and energy securities are deliberately sought. So, in this session, we would like to look into those various political, economic, and technological solutions that could be appreciated. As you all know, we have two presenters. As you know, we have our experts here. The first presenter is Dr. Doo-bong, the president of Korea Rural Economic Institute, and also Mr. Peter Jang, the professor of Korea Institute of Energy Technology. I would like to briefly introduce to you Mr. Han Doo-bong. He's been the president of the Korea Rural Economic Institute since this year, and he's also written many books. And also, he is the president of the Rural Academic Association, and he has also received his degree in the US. And also, Professor Peter Jang, he is currently the professor of the Korea Institute of Energy Technology, focusing on energy market theory. He's also worked more than 20 years at Shell Energy. So he is an academic, as you all know. He studied at University of Pennsylvania. He's received his MBA degrees, and also he studied at the Texas Tech University to acquire his PhD degree. So he has a very much diversified background. So first, I would like to invite Dr. Doo-bong, the president of Korea Rural Economic Institute. Please welcome him with a big round of applause.
It's my great honor to come here to share my knowledge on the food and energy security with all of us. 제가 여기 많은 분들이
Since we have the majority of the audience are Koreans, and so I would like to make my presentation in Korean. If you raise a question in English, then I can respond in English. I made a lot of the presentations in various venues. I think this is the most prestigious and the proud venue that I am in. In the previous sessions, we heard the peace in action that represent the responsibility and the compassion that we intellectuals should hold. That reflects the legacy from the President Kim-dae-jung. And I'm very honored to stand before you. Let me begin my presentation.
security in the era of the new Cold War. 그러니까 냉전 시대에 식량과
This is the challenge ahead of food and energy security and the era of new Cold War. This is the title of my presentation. So my table of contents are as follows. The first one is a new Cold War. The second topic is uncertainty. So at the moment, we are witnessing the uncertainties of uncertainties. This is more pronounced in food and energy security perspectives. So given this perspective, we have to think about what we should do about it. And then I will discuss food and energy security issues in Korea. And then it will be followed by implications and suggestions and close with my closing remarks. And the new Cold War is being prevalent around the world, threatening food and energy securities. Now we are seeing the EU-Russia rivalry, Ukraine and Russia war, Taiwan and Chinese tension, and the Korean issue. They are being witnessed. And the Uruguay round was concluded in the 1993. At that time, the remaining issue is the agreement between EU and the United States. However, the WTO system is being paralyzed at the moment. That means there are global forces that are beyond the control of EU and the United States. These food and energy security issues have been repeatedly pronounced. As you see here, this is the grain price and the oil prices. They are moving in similar pattern. However, grain, oil, and stock prices were moving at the other directions. When oil price and the food prices go up, then the economy goes down, then the stock prices would fall. When the oil shock comes in, the financial shock was not there. However, from the 1980s and on, in responding to the global warming, corn and the beans were used to produce oil, the fuel. So when oil price goes up, ethanol prices followed, and which is also followed by the price hike in the food, including corn. So unlike in the West, all the prices are moving in unison. In 2008, financial crisis took place after that. The financial market tried to find the factors to de-risk, so they made investment in commodity and the food markets. So when the food and oil prices go up, the stock prices fell. That was the phenomenon of the past. Around the world, subsistency in energy and food reached above 100%. That means stability is there. But the problem is the distribution. The global south and global north have a big divide. So the rich gets richer and the poor gets poorer. So distribution matter is very pronounced through the recent events like Ukrainian war and the pandemic, where the supply chain was disrupted. Subsistency in food and energy is very much related. So food subsistency goes up and energy subsistency goes up. And the other way, vice versa. So in order to reduce the divide, the world has to work together. And another problem is the volatility is getting widening. As as time goes by, as you see here, level of volatility is going up. The wheat, unlike oil, the wheat is hugely impacted by the weather instability, weather abnormalities. So it adds more volatility to the wheat prices. After 2008, volatility grew even more, and the energy and commodity markets are related to the financial market. The commodity markets are also financialized, and the relationship is being studied by the research institute. So the energy and the agricultural markets are linked. So not only in terms of returns, but also in terms of volatility. So now we are living in an age of uncertainty of uncertainties. For example, since the launch of WTO, recently the trade volume in energy and food have grown so much. Since 2008, what is bigger problem is not only with the price but also volatility. It makes the life of policymakers even harder. So they are not really able to figure out what would be the right policies. That's my problem too. Every morning, as a policy researcher, I really pray to get a clear eye looking into the future. So our job is not to address immediate concern, but also we have to look into the future 50 to 100 years from now. With that in mind, we have to come up or shape the current policies. That is very difficult. And energy and food exporters are limited in number, Middle East, Russia, and the United States. Exporters are very limited. However, there are a lot of food and the oil importing countries. That means more volatility in price movement. And these days, geopolitical risk has been much augmented. These days, the Black Sea grain initiatives have been failed. That made the food market even more unresting. So EU market and the global grain markets are being more unstable. And as said before, export ban has been intensified. And during the food crisis in 2008 and during the pandemic, African and Asian countries were hit hard. And Ukrainian war is taking the world into the geopolitical risk that has huge impact on import and export. And 30% in Africa and 20% in Europe and Asia are hugely affected by the Ukrainian war. Oil and food crisis is linked to the health crisis, financial crisis, as well as climate risks. So all the risks are unfolding in multiple forms. In the past, the oil shock was a single event, and the Asian financial crisis was a single event. But agricultural price goes up, then the oil prices also goes up. So not only the price instability, but also overall instability or volatility also being expanded. Then what will be the issue in Korea? The food security in Korea is very low. Grain subsistency is as low as 20% level. The grain, if you include feed, the figure goes to the 40%. The only food security is very, very low. Korea ranked 39th out of 13 countries. Singapore often said that food security would not be a problem if the country is rich. In terms of the food security index, Singapore ranked first. But passing through the pandemic and in the middle of the Ukrainian war, the rank of Singapore fell to 28th. If the GDP goes above $80,000, the food security used to be secure. However, how much money you pay, you cannot get the money these days. So in China, the prime national value is to get this food security. Looking into Korea, food self-sufficiency is very low. In OECD countries, Korea ranked 41st out of 48, which is lowest among the OECD countries, and energy self-sufficiency is 42 out of 48, which is at the bottom. The wheat, beans are all imported. Except rice, all the grains are from foreign countries. So 80% of the Korean food are coming from outside. So what would happen in the future? The population cliff will be prevalent, and the population aging is moving very fast, and senior citizens cannot really engage in the economic activities. The many farmers are very aged. If they can work, they are engaged in the rice farming. Young people cannot enter the agricultural business in Korea because land is so expensive. And farmers are dependent on the government subsidy, so they don't have a wealth security, so they cannot sell their land. So farmers under 39 is less than 1% in Korea. How to address this problem? Really related to the Korea's future. Given the situation, definitely Korea should strengthen the food security. Land is narrow, so the land should be used in a more efficient way. So good land should be well preserved. And the agricultural business should open its door to the young farmers. Recently, the government implemented the system to accommodate the young farmers in the agricultural business. As I said before, all old farmers cannot sell their land because their children oppose the idea. If land is priced more than 600 million won, for example, if that is the case, the farmers should pay the national health insurance premium, and even though they sell the land, the money cannot be fully transferred to their children because of the tax. So these old farmers get sick, they become dependent on their children. So children oppose their parents selling land. So the government intervention is needed. Actually, if your age above 80, you cannot lift heavy containers like holding the fertilizers and the necessary tools. So this problem has to be addressed, and also the import market has to be diversified, and the energy security is another problem to secure. The public accumulation, public procurement, and the international public procurement system should be shaped. And also we have to develop more diverse markets for energy sourcing, and also we have to strengthen partnership with other countries. And the agricultural sector and the energy sector has to be balanced. Recently, in Jeollado province imported the agricultural voltaic system. So agri-voltaic was launched in order to produce food and energy at the same time. Renewable energy sources have to be utilized, and the new source of fuels have to be developed. So our target is not only to raise self-sufficiency, but also addressing the volatility and protecting people from those instability and volatility. This is my conclusion. The agriculture is the backbone of the country. The food appetite of people as a person is uncontrollable. In order for agriculture to be advanced, if you look at the Singapore, you get the clue. However, as food and energy crisis get very serious, you have to set a new plan. Agriculture and the energy insecurity grew so much because finance become unstable, geopolitical risk is being augmented, and there is also climate change and pandemic, which is a health crisis. So a lot of risks are unfolding at the same time. So in the past, policymakers focused on economic growth, but these days they have to focus on securing stability in various sectors. Now, even though you have money as an advanced country, you cannot import food and energy easily due to the Russian and Ukrainian war. President Xi Jinping of China put the priority on food security, and that is the same for North Korea and Singapore. And as mentioned before, Korea should play a pivot role in the world. Korea does not have enough abundant natural resources. We have to think about the role of South Korea in helping other countries. That will be the way that Korea to become a pivot country. Political and economic stability should be also pursued in the course of the work. And I think the role of agricultural and resource economists is very important in preparing for the future for global food security, because as you drive on the road, sometimes you cannot see the street board because your view is covered by snow. So uncertainty means you cannot look into the future. Now you are the agricultural and resource professors, so you have to have a clear eyes to read through the uncertainties of the future, so that we can prevent big catastrophe coming down. So when the weather is bad with snow, if you misread the street sign, then you may end up in dead end. As you are sitting here as professionals and experts and policymakers, your role is very important and your responsibility is huge. Thank you. This is the end of my presentation. Thank you.
예, 세계적으로 식량과 에너지
So food and energy is sufficient globally, and grain, food, and oil is all interconnected and related. And as for Korea, food and energy security is at the lowest among the OECD countries, and many alternatives were provided by Professor. And so food security and energy security should be addressed together. Thank you very much for your presentation, including all those aspects. And next, I would like to invite Professor Peter Jang of Chun-taek.
I would say this is a great honor for me to be a part of Kim Dae-jung Peace Forum. And also, I feel very thankful for this opportunity to speak on the present and future of energy at global marketplaces. And I thank you, Dr. Han, for sharing your insight on the energy and food security. And my topic is closing up on the energy security issues. And for those who don't know about my university, Korea Institute of Energy Technology, in short, it's called Chun-taek. And Naju City is our home, sweet home, okay, to my university. Actually, yesterday, Dr. Akim Ali from WHO mentioned, no health, no global peace. So in the similar context, I would say, no energy, no global peace. So I'm going in the route. Okay, here is what we are going to discuss today. We're going to look at the new Cold War and what are the consequences, what are the reactions in the global market. And we're going to take a look at who are the energy producers, energy sources, and the energy uses, so that we can build our big picture of energy markets. And we're going to move on to our topic, energy security, and looking at the energy portfolio, or in other words, energy mix. And we see that there's benefits and also risks. So we're going to take a look at that. And with that understanding of energy mix, and we're going to take a look at how are the energy policies in Korea and in other countries. How about the trends? With understanding, we're going to look at the solutions, particularly long-term clean energy portfolios. And my big goal for today is trying to help you understand, to build a big picture of energy markets. At the same time, I want to help you to believe there is a bright future, not dark, in energy marketplace. Okay, Cold War. Okay, it was about 1.5 years ago. That happened a lot. That affected the whole global marketplace. Russia invaded Ukraine. Okay, and because of that, most nations got suffered, especially price spikes. And the most directly hit were the countries in Europe because they were heavily imported the fuels from Russia. Okay, what this means is European countries just changed their policy, trying to accelerate the renewable portion and away from fossil fuels imported from Russia. And with that one, actually this crisis is not the only one. Historically, there have been a lot of energy crises. As you know, there are three oil shocks in the 1970s and 80s. And 1990, there's a Persian Gulf War, and followed by demand shock-led price spikes in the 2008, as Dr. Han mentioned. But when there's a crisis, the market is moving, trying to adapt to the environment. Actually, because of a new Cold War since last year, Korea is one of the countries that's got hit really hard. And they're looking at the price level at February last year, and they compare it to the price level in the January 2021. The LNG price and the electric price noted as SMP, which are noted in the bold lines. You see that about 3 times higher compared to January 2021. And we are paying high price. And looking at the other thin lines representing Brent oil price and natural gas price and also electric price in US, it became very similar to the level in July this year. But in Korea, this past December 2022, the price level is about 4 times. So what this means is Korean energy market is very weak, couldn't respond, and very volatile. Actually, the thing is, when something like that happens, America did a pretty good job increasing the production in oil or natural gas. When in the middle of 2008, the price level for oil went to $150 per barrel, and the natural gas price up $15 per MMBTU. It's very interesting. U.S. responded by increasing the production volume, double up from 5 million barrels per day to almost 10 billion barrels a day in crude oil market in 6 or 7 year time frame. Natural gas market, they did pretty the same. Who are the winners? Capital and technology. That's what we need. And here, to have a good understanding of energy markets, this chart called energy flow chart is a good one. This is for US in 2021. That shows the energy sources and energy uses. Energy sources are, as we know, renewables, including solar and all that, and fossil fuels, and the nuclear energy here. And we are using those primary energy for electricity and transportation fuels, space heating, and plus industrial feedstock. Think about it. Okay, if we have enough electricity to use our smartphones and enough fuels to drive our cars and good amount of energy to keep ourselves warm, then we are in good shape today and tomorrow. And Korea, the energy imports are very serious, depending on outside country, over 94%. And looking at the portfolio of generation, US or Korea is pretty similar, from fossil fuels all the way down to renewables. But US has a lot more weight or portion in renewables, about 21% compared to 8% in Korea. Okay, given the situation, there's an energy crisis, the marketplace are taking action to adjust, and short-term and long-term. And the energy security topic is coming up because we have the new Cold War triggered by Russian-Ukraine war. There are 4 components to consider. Available, okay, can you have the energy today and tomorrow? And accessible, that means, even though the energy is there, can you get there, get it out, deliver it to me? Acceptable, this is a key component these days. Everybody's worried about carbon emissions, global warming concern. So even though there's energy we can use from a coal, okay, it's not that much acceptable to the public. It's not environmental friendly at all, affordable price. So when you look at the short-term energy security, it's just responding in a couple of years how we're gonna do it. But what we are looking for is for us and for our future generations, long-term investment in energy supply. We need to set up strategies, risk management, and policies, all those measures. Here, in general, energy mix or portfolio, this is some investment term. In energy portfolio, the object would be every energy demand should be met by a proper supply. That is the most important ultimate goal. But we have very big constraint, which is global warming. Okay, we want to make sure carbon emission is kind of contained or limited. And when you build an energy mix portfolio, there are some risks involved. You have looking at price and supply disruption, value chains, and laws or regulations. Here, I take a look at the national comparison of a total energy consumption portfolio from Korea all the way to Emirates. And the consumer energy-wise, coal, natural gas, petroleum, and nuclear and renewables. When you look at Korea, US, Japan, they have a pretty similar portfolio from coal all the way down to renewables. But the US has a lot lower portion in coal. But interestingly enough, as we know, Saudi Arabia, Emirates, they are almost 98% focused on fossil fuels, which is natural gas and petroleum. So here, we have a totally different portfolio, right? But how they react would be very similar. I'm going to talk about that. Okay, let's look at given those energy mix and portfolio in Korea. What is the risk we have? I think it's using those 4 or 5 different categories of energy and consumption portion, which is represented by weight, I look at the market volatility, price volatility in the December last year for the June 2023 delivery products. The volatility is pretty high, 50 to 70%. And the nuclear renewables, I assume, is future price volatility very low, 5-10%. Given those assumptions, in Korea, energy portfolio risk is about 45%, which means current price may go up 45 or 50% up or down in 1 year time frame. Okay, you are willing to pay 50% more after 1 year. Can you do that? You don't want to do that. But this is where we are in right now. Then how can you reduce this risk? And in line with a lot of drive for renewables, if we are successful having more waste or more portion in nuclear and renewables by increasing probably 50% more to compare to what we have, the price risk may go down to 11%. That is a 34% down to compare what we have. What does this mean? Okay, 10% price volatility, we can handle it. Usually the stock price is moving around about 20% a year in general. So this is a good one. But big assumption is we have to cut down the fossil fuels rates. Here, let's look at some history here. There have been a lot of talks in the past 10 years in Korea. Okay? Thing is, we want to diversify oil import sources with Canada or US, which is happening right now. And recently, we want to focus more on the production of hydrogen energy as a substitute. And lately, nuclear. Okay, nuclear is very important to support intermittent renewable energy sources. And let's look at the carbon-free 100, not just the renewable 100. These are some arguments from a nuclear side. Then a good example here, in April this year, Germany gave up on the nuclear power plant. They got rid of everything, and they are focusing on some fossil fuel and renewables. They are changing. And are they going to be successful? That is something we're going to see. Here, given that, there is a Korean policy that was announced, published July last year. Big objective, I summarize here, by 2030, increase nuclear and reduce fossil fuel, and a strong drive for hydrogen energy. Big themes. And looking at the global trend, at the same time, USA, UK, France, Germany, and China, there's something in common. Increase renewables and increase nuclear. They don't talk about the fossil fuels at all. So in this global energy market, it's talking about the same thing. Okay, cut carbon emissions and carbon neutrality, nuclear and renewables are most important. We are looking at the Korea and other countries. How about the oil-producing countries, such as Saudi Arabia and Emirates? Are they comfortable with right now? Because they're raking big money, revenue stream from high crude oil prices. That is about $9 barrel these days. But they still have the concern as well in their own energy security. Because oil is their major source of revenue stream, and every nation in the world is talking about renewables and carbon reduction. And the fossil fuels, crude oils, are not welcome. So they are looking for other ways. Saudi Arabia, they are building a big hydrogen production in NEOM development. Actually, they build a really big solar farms and generating 2,200 megawatts. You know what the size means? That energy capacity will be able to serve 2 million homes. It's huge. What are they going to do with that? Produce hydrogen. And looking at the Emirates, they were the first runner in building nuclear power plant. They started about 10 years ago. And KEPCO is out there helping them build up 5,600 megawatts. They're trying to transition themselves to nuclear. So their goal is interesting, nuclear and also renewables. Kind of interesting. Nobody thought about that, especially in the Saudi Arabia and Emirates. So everybody is talking about the same thing. And given those situations here and a lot of policies in place, here are some of the clean portfolio as a solution, which you all heard about it, renewables. And Korea is very low in terms of renewable portion, about 8%, compared to Japan, US, 21%. And the challenge is it's not stable source of supply. When sun goes on, there is no power, there is no wind, there is no wind power. That is one. And another one, nuclear power, big giant capacity coming up from nuclear energy. It's very clean, and it has a reasonable and stable fuel supply, uranium and deuterium. And fission energy is the one we are talking for a typical nuclear power plant. And fusion energy, we call that artificial sun. As you see the photo at the bottom, there's a big fire rings around the pillar. That's we call the plasma. It's a lot more than millions of degrees in Celsius. Very hot. How to control that is a challenge. And hydrogen energy is also interesting. You heard about it. You can produce hydrogen. You can use it for transportation, heating, electricity generation, multi-purpose. But it is not successful. The reason is when you look at those numbers in the US, power plant very small, using the hydrogen energy, and the hydrogen fuel cell cars. In Korea, we have about 32,000 cars a few months ago. That accounts for about almost 50% of all the hydrogen cars in the world. A lot of room for growth. Electric vehicles is very growing a lot and getting a lot of popularity. 20 billion cars in the world, and China is the biggest market. And last year, they sold 10 million electric vehicles in the world. So China, Europe, and US are big market for electric vehicles. Korea, 2 million cars. Not that bad. We are catching up as well. There is some minority technology that's a part of a clean energy portfolio. Solar paired energy storage. There are a lot of solar energy you can use. You can pair it with a big battery storage. The photo on the right, that's a container. That's a big battery backed by solar energy. Another one, minority technology you can see would be called waste heat to power. There are a lot of heat is lost in the industrial process from refining or steel manufacturing or even coffee toasting industry as well. We can collect all those waste heat, convert it into electricity, very clean as well. So to do this, we need a big infrastructure and systems to support that. As Dr. Han mentioned here, there are a lot of disputed systems going on in place here. There are solar producers, wind power, fuel cell, micro turbine generators, small power plants here and there as a producer and consumer as well. How to integrate them is a challenge because we have to understand all those data from suppliers and consumers. So big computing power is required. AI capability is the key. And the optimizing, balancing supply demand is the key as well. So this is a very complex system when it comes to understanding the energy market. Producer, all the consumers, there's a transmission and distribution lines. And those important components in the markets include the energy AI and energy materials or solar renewables or hydrogen energy, grid network optimization, and the carbon capture technology. Also not last but not the least is nuclear as well. This is what we have at Chun-taek. We are the only university solely dedicated to energy research and education. So we are looking to a bright future. And what I want to say is, okay, please follow us, like us, and stay with us. And hopefully we're going to be one of the great driving engines that's going to make big contribution to global energy marketplace. Thank you.
네, 감사합니다.
Thank you. He showed how the energy security is getting worse and made the point that energy portfolio should be more augmented, especially for the clean energy source. And the different countries have different positions. So considering all this, we need to strengthen our energy security. We've heard 2 presentations. If you have any questions and comments, I would like to give you floor. Thank you. Please pass him the microphone. Please identify yourself and brief question, please. I'm chairperson of the safety facility. Solar voltaic power generation was very popular. As you pointed out, energy security and energy sourcing is very important and getting critical. However, the current government have a policy opposing the trend. So I hope that our government make a turnaround in terms of policy implementation. So if you have any recommendation or the advices, that would be great helpful. You can borrow the example from other countries. I think the market competition is important. Korean energy market is highly regulated. Even though we import energy sources, 94% of energy sources from outside, however, they are highly regulated. So safety issue is important. So intensives are needed to navigate the regulation. So I think that the regulated market should be opened up to address a lot of problems there. Mr. Han? Photovoltaic business is in trouble. In the past, the production cost has been subsidized by the government in the past. The photovoltaic facility needs 20 years in installation. And previously, the return was like a 20-fold. However, compared to the past, the interest rate increased by 5-fold. That means the great uncertainties is the case in the future. So unlike in the past, the policy mix is critical. In the past, energy policies and financial policies were closely related. So at this moment, the financial cost is too high, so individual business or the private sector could be faced with the big hurdles rolling into the business. So the operators or service providers needs the proper conditions to have a responsible operation. As I said before, we are living in an era of uncertainty of uncertainties, but also, so not only the government, but also the private operators should take the more responsibility in doing their business. One more question, please.
Any questions or comment from audience? 예, 없으신 것 같아서요. 제가
So if there aren't any questions from the audience, I would like to ask Professor Peter Jang. So you've talked about various options and alternatives, and by 2050, then the portion of fossil fuel will be less than 10%, and other energy sources, for instance, clean energy portion will increase. And what will be the role of fossil fuel? Could you elaborate on that comment that you've made during your presentation? Right. Many countries say that they will reach carbon neutrality by 2050, which means that it doesn't mean that they will no longer use fossil fuels. And fossil fuels includes crude oil, coal, natural gas. But we first need to understand to what extent they use those energy mixes. For instance, for coal, it's for generation purposes. Crude oil is for 90% for transportation use.
For power generation, rest of it for space heating or something else. Okay, something else is most important here. Okay, petroleum and natural gas are used to be as an industrial feedstock material to make plastic or chemical products as well. That part, we can't do anything unless we find a substitute. So in that sense, I would say probably 10% or 5% of fossil fuel should be there as well to support other industry. And with the help of technology of carbon capture. So probably 5 to 10% should stay there. It doesn't go away. That's my view.
Yeah, thank you very much for your presentations and also audience. And I would like to conclude this session. Yeah, thank you very much.